You mentioned that, people know that you've been together for over 2 decades.
31 years. 3 decades.
Over 3 decades.
31 years, married 24.
Wow.
Let's take a moment.
Right.
Let's take a moment. But there's so many different versions. I know when I look back at my life, like, I was not who I was when I was 20, 30, last year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can attest to that.
You got it. But, it's one of those things where your partner has to keep up with the different versions of yourself.
Yes.
Sometimes that can be very difficult, and it's a lot of work. The navigation and all of that, how did you go about that?
I think for us, every couple evolves, right? People evolve, but it's how you evolve and what you evolve to, right? And the reason I say that is our relationship is a little different than most people's relationship. We have a relationship where we're up under each other more than most people. When I get up in the morning and I'm driving to work, 9 times out of 10, I'm talking to her. When I leave the radio station, I pick up the phone and I'm driving home or I'm driving to the office, I'm talking to her. We have a relationship where we're constantly communicating. So when I'm evolving, we're evolving together. It's like, and I know this is, everybody always says this, but like when you have your best friend with you all the time, like we go to the clubs with each other, we go to the kids dance with each other, we go to the like there is no really separation, and it works for us. Even when I go out with the fellas, last night, we're in Atlanta, I went out with the fellas. You know who was with me? My wife.
There you go.
But my wife is an individual that she's talking to the fellas. Right. If we were a single fella, she's like, oh, you should talk to her. She's pretty. Oh, you should do that. My wife goes to the gentleman's club with us. Like, we have that relationship. And I think when it comes to evolving as people, it's almost like you evolve together to whatever it is, whether it's more faith, whether it's more this, whether it's less that, we do it together.
So that's always been like, did you guys evolve to that, get to that stage, or has that always been the way you guys have rocked?
I sense some evolution. Was there
ever a point where in 30, like everybody doesn't always grow together. So was there ever a time where like there was a growing apart kind of thing and you reined it back in?
There was never a growing apart, but there was a maturation that had to take place. And I would say more on his part than my part. And I guess I'm going to draw a little bit from what I said before. He went through a period where he was becoming more and more famous, and then he got to a pinnacle, and you have all of this attention, and then you have to adjust to what that does to the ego and what that does to a young man that maybe hasn't had those conversations with his father, or maybe doesn't have an uncle to have that conversation with, that has to navigate it himself. And we talk a lot about that in our first book, Real Life, Real Love. And, he explains like how that was a little bit difficult and how that might have led him in different directions and how we had to navigate that as a couple.
One of the things, and I've told you this before, I've told the group, our producers, that someone taught me something really important once. And that was, if you can't figure something out, like, why is this person acting like this? Or, why is this happening? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Normally, ego is at the center of it in some way. And it could be any situation. And I've tried it, not just within situations within, marriage, but just stuff that just doesn't make sense. Normally, ego. Someone doesn't want to meet somebody halfway, or someone, is thinking of themselves in a way that, they think other people aren't regarding them. So their ego takes over.
It's a sense of self-importance in a lot of cases. And sometimes people come to that conclusion themselves, but at other times the people that they're around may give that to them. But either way, that's the final destination. And, a lot of people don't know how to deal with that. And when you talk about evolution, we had to go through that. But thank God we evolved out of that. And then we got to a different place where I feel as though we kind of cracked the code because there were so many things that life throws at you, and just so many setbacks that are just kind of inherent with being young and being in love and being blessed enough where you're in a situation where there are a lot of opportunities of all sorts that are coming at you. And we had to go through that. So to come out of it on the other side with God, with faith, and benefiting and being able to look back and say, I'm so glad. And me, not even him, me being able to say, I'm so glad that all of those things happened. Mm-hmm. Even though it was to my detriment, I'm so glad that all those things happened, because as a couple, as human beings, as parents, as partners, we learned so much so much from it. And there was so much that we stood to gain and did gain. Our faith developed from those situations. Our closeness, the place that we're at now, developed from those situations. So it was kind of like a gift and a curse, you know, but the gift was worth the curse.
Right, because really without it, you wouldn't have been where you are today.
Correct.
Absolutely not. Correct. Sometimes you really have to go through the mud to understand what life has in store for you. For it to all make sense, you have to go through some of that grit to say, there's a reason, there's a lesson in that. Because without someone couldn't have told me that. I wouldn't have understood that. I had to go through it so that I can have the experience to learn from. I can't really learn from your experience. Right. I can only learn as much as I can learn by you telling me what you experienced. But when I experience it, now I get it. Now I get it. And I thought I was happy before all of that.